Can you believe that the entire first year of Switch 2 is now over? It's crazy to think about because, man, we were so looking forward to this thing for years before it was even revealed. Do you remember the end of 2025 where all those leaked patents and pictures and accessory company leaks were dropping of what the console was going to look like, and Nintendo still didn't do anything, and we were like, what's happening? Yeah, man, we've come a long way. But year one is over, for better or worse, because to say the least, Switch 2 definitely wasn't the huge hit for everybody that it was for some. I mean, this is the generation that I think I've seen the most hate and praise at the same time for a singular console, and also the generation of grifting. Apparently, I'm one of them. Also, apparently in this generation, Arlo and Wood also became grifters. Gosh, we need to learn what grifting means. But I think I've made it pretty clear how I felt about this generation for the most part, where I think there are some good charms of this first year so far. But at the same time, I definitely was expecting a lot more from Nintendo. And oh boy, did that leave a messy year for me. But enough about me. This is about Nintendo Switch 2's first year, and now it's officially over. How did it actually stack up, and how did it compare to Switch 1? Who am I freaking kidding? Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 2, Mario Rabbids, Xenoblade 2, ARMS. Look, I just don't think I'll ever experience that same level of hype that I did in 2017. I mean, a mainline Zelda and Mario in the same year is just unstoppable. Not to mention, they were huge games for their respective series. The first ever open world Zelda, the first return to 3D sandbox Mario since Sunshine, it was a big deal. But I don't know, people that love 2017 are always just boiled down to people that only like Mario and Zelda. Get that anime away from me. Grr. Yes, I love Mario and Zelda more than the next guy, but man, that year just had sauce to it. Every game felt like it had quality, a fresh idea, a new take. So the first year, Switch 2 had a very high bar to pass, and it would try to with its first game, Mario Kart World. Mario Kart World was a fine racing game, but man, as far as Mario Kart games go, it definitely didn't cross my top 3. It just felt very lackluster in comparison to things I've played in the past. The tracks were really, really good, but then forcing you to race in these straightaway intermissions just sucked, and I don't even need to get into all of that because of how much I've already talked about it. The best way I can describe Mario Kart World was a really good game with wasted potential. And with it being a year later, still no DLC or substantial updates have been added to the game, which just kind of sucks because I have no reason to go back right now. Now, in the Switch era, we had tons of Wii U ports, and a lot of them made sense. I'm not gonna lie, as one of the few proud owners of my Wii U, I realized not a lot of people were able to play some of those games. So it made sense then. Not necessarily with the Switch 2 pulling from straight Switch 1 games. Yeah, that's what we got a lot of, is Switch 2 editions of Switch 1 games, and Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV but this was easily one of the worst Switch 2 editions. It was just a way for Nintendo to say, hey, that camera that you bought, yeah, this is where you can use it, and this is one of the few things and only things that you're going to be able to use it on in the entire first year of Switch 2. It was just gimmicky, corny, and people just wanted more boards and minigames, not whatever this stuff was. I'm sorry, but I know my brother is not that happy. Then Nintendo said, Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. This is great, really, for people that haven't played these games because it bumps it up to 60 FPS, fewer frame drops in general, and enhances the resolution a bit. So this is like the pinnacle way to play Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which is really cool, but I'm like, after all of the hours that I spent into these games, I have no, and I mean no, urgency to go back and replay these games right now. They're just way too massive. Plus, Tears of the Kingdom was mid. Kirby and the Forgotten Land's Star-Crossed World was actually pretty good. It just felt like a little bit more of the same game, which was great because the game was amazing. So I really don't have too many complaints about it. It was just a short little addition to the story. It was fine, but nothing that was super memorable. It gave you a new final boss, but it was pretty much the same final boss, just enhanced. But I will admit, looking back at it, it's so cool to see a 60 FPS Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Like, man, it looks so smooth now compared to its original game, so that was a plus. Now, those batch of games was already not that exciting, but Nintendo decided to get even weirder with 2 extra games. No, we're not getting an equivalent to Wii Sports or Wii Sports Resort quite yet. I mean, we did get Switch Sports on Switch 1 before this, but man, they decided to give us wheelchair basketball. Drag and Drive was probably one of the most lackluster games I think I've ever played from Nintendo. I picked it up and played like maybe 30 minutes during the play session in the demo and did not want to play anymore. This game was just not that exciting to me. It had 1 court and like 1 major game mode. That was it. and they were charging $30 for this thing. This should have been a $5 eShop game. And then for the second game, Nintendo made a $10 manual for your Switch 2. Yeah, I'm not joking, but would it be bizarre if I said that I enjoyed this thing more than Drag and Drive? No, I'm not joking. It actually wasn't terrible for what it was. Should it have been free? Absolutely. How did this not come packed into your Switch 2? The fact that you have to pay $10 for a manual is wild, and the fact that I did it is wilder. What is going on? But no, I can't say I actually had a terrible time with it the way I did Drag and Drive. I kind of liked learning about the Switch 2. That sounds insane. Moving on. Nintendo finally announced GameCube NSO, but I can't lie, it's kind of been a bust. I mean, literally, this thing was announced and released a year ago, with 3 games. They added 6 more games. Yeah, I feel like they definitely have not capitalized with this stuff yet. No heavy hitters, like no Mario Kart Double Dash, Smash Brothers Melee. I mean, they didn't even add one of the Star Fox games, so, like, yeah, I don't know what they're doing. It's like a super drip feed, maybe a new GameCube game every 2 months. But after a pretty strange start, Nintendo would absolutely swing for the fences with Donkey Kong Bonanza. At least for me, this was absolutely the peakest game the Switch 2 had to offer, and still to this day, I still believe that to be the case. Donkey Kong Bonanza is amazing, but I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of surprised to see how a good chunk of people and mutuals that I followed didn't really think that to be the case. They enjoyed it, but didn't think it was really that grand, and I can actually see why after taking a second look. Where 90% of this game is made to be about digging and punching through the earth and picking up terrain. It's about digging and exploring rather than tight platforming like a 3D Mario would be. So it didn't resonate with everybody, and I can completely understand that, especially as one of the first major games for the Switch 2. I think a lot of people just wanted that big 3D Mario game. Could you imagine? But no, as of right now, Donkey Kong Bonanza sits at the only game that I would highly recommend you buy a Switch 2 for. Kirby Air Riders was actually pretty good, but it just got kind of stale for me very quickly. It had a lot of stuff to do for single player stuff, for instance, doing all the missions in the challenge wall and stuff. I was definitely occupied for a couple of months doing all that, but after that, the online was kind of stale. It was also very empty. Not too many people were playing even after a couple of months after the game released, but I still thought it was even better than Mario Kart World. But as someone who really loves the Hyrule Warriors games, Age of Imprisonment just kind of fell flat to me. I don't know, it felt like a better running Age of Calamity, but I thought Age of Calamity was a better game overall, with better content and better characters. This game had a bunch of characters I just couldn't care less about. The story was short and sweet and pretty predictable, obviously. The maps were less open-ended and more corridor-focused this time around, and overall, there wasn't much rewards in this game. Like, you complete the entire game, there was no hidden secret characters post-game or anything like that, no additional content added. It felt kind of lacking, honestly. And even when it comes to the new movesets, I felt like Age of Calamities was way more interesting and unique, where every single character had this unique gimmick that really made them stand out. For this time, it was just Zora uses water, the Gerudo uses lightning, you know? Now, naturally, I'm not a big Pokemon fan, but I did decide to give ZA a try, and I did complete the entire game. I had a pretty decent time overall, but it was just okay. Like, it didn't really leave me with a lasting impression. It was like, okay, that was a game I played. That was fine. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but it was fine. I think my biggest problem was just everything being in the one city. There was no real nature areas outside of a couple of parks, but you're just catching Pokemon in the alleyways, on rooftops, by trash cans. It was just strange. But then the year ended with one game that I've been waiting for so long. Metroid Prime 4, baby. I even went back and replayed the entire trilogy before reaching this game. And I have never been more let down with a new game release in my entire life. This is one of the few times where I'll say, I don't understand how people had the opinion that this game was good. Like, I genuinely don't understand, especially as a Metroid fan. I don't know. I get it. Everybody has their own opinions, and they're right to their own opinion. If you like this game, great. But I don't know how you like this game. Like, I just don't get it, especially coming off of the trilogy. This was nothing like the first 3 games at all. It was an extreme lack of puzzle, an extreme lack of exploration and backtracking, and, you know, just what made Metroid Prime. All the areas were just straight corridors. Some areas were specifically just you walking up to a terminal, scanning it, leaving the area, turning on the power source, fighting a couple enemies, leaving the area. It takes a lot for me to say, yeah, I really didn't like that game. Normally, the worst I give it is like, it was okay. I don't even know if I can say if it was okay. Like, it was just for a lot of the game, boring. I don't know, man, but daggone it was such a letdown. Like, this was probably the biggest letdown of the entire year for me, between this and Mario Kart World. Now, I think it's pretty obvious why I was kind of upset with 2025. Outside of Donkey Kong Bonanza, I really didn't feel much for the Switch 2. Like, it was okay, the games were coming, but they were just lower in quality than I was expecting. But thankfully, 2026 was actually a big surprise for me so far, which is crazy when you look back at the games that came out. So one of the first ones was Mario Wonder Switch 2 Edition, and for this just being a Switch 2 Edition, it actually added some fun little content. I've never really played the multiplayer stuff, but I will say the newly added boss battles are phenomenal, and I really wish Nintendo would have had these in the base game. I am absolutely not a fan of life sim games, but Pokemon Pokopia really did a number on me for about a couple of months. It was actually super satisfying to progress the story and help everybody out. I ended up even beating the game and I could not believe it. Now, I did not return to fix all the islands and areas up because I just don't have the time nor the effort. Yeah, it's a lot, but still, I was very surprised by this, and this was honestly probably one of my favorite Pokemon experiences that I had today. But that's not saying much because I started on Pokemon Sword and Shield generation, so yeah. But when I say this game was truly charming and a major surprise for me, I definitely mean it. I am so glad I decided to give this game a try. I know a Mario Tennis game isn't the most exciting thing that you could get year one of a brand new console, especially since it's tennis yet again and not Mario Sluggers or a Mario Hoops game, but still, this is definitely one of the best tennis games they've ever released. I think it's extremely high on content than most tennis games. There's all types of crazy rackets and tons of characters and a not terrible story mode. The first half is kind of slow, sure, but it actually adds some cool things towards the second half with its own little story, some cool little boss battles. They did a pretty good job with this game, all things considered, because I held Mario Power Tennis on the GameCube as the pinnacle of Mario Tennis games, and this might be my new favorite now. I had a blast playing online and trying to compete to get to the top, and yeah, I ended up getting like top 100 in the world in the first season, so yeah, I own that like a badge of honor. And who would have thought that freaking Yoshi and the Mysterious Book would end up being one of my favorite games on Switch 2? No, I'm not joking. This game thoroughly surprised me. I could not believe how much content and in-depth this game could get. In fact, I felt like Mario Wonder was more of a children's game than this game was. That's what I was expecting going into this thing because the marketing seems so child-focused, but daggone it, as a 28-year-old adult, I love this thing, and I'm still constantly playing through it trying to get all the missions completed. This was such a great experience that was actually worthwhile, and you'll spend tons of hours in this game trying to 100% it, and I think, at least for me, the 100% completion is actually a lot of fun. It's definitely a game that's aimed for smaller children, but I don't know, it resonated with me pretty well. It wasn't your traditional 2D platformer, and it actually had some depth to it. I really like Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, even though I did wish that Yoshi and the Mysterious Book was instead a 3D Yoshi game for the first time, but I guess we'll wait until next time. But yeah, that was the first entire year of Switch 2. And if you're watching this, you're probably thinking, yeah, not too many heavy hitters from Nintendo. Mostly some smaller titles, spin-off games and such, which is fine. But yeah, I do wish there was more of those big games that you were looking forward to. We need those big games, baby. But I've said this before and I'll say it again. The big story and moral of the Switch 2 so far for me has been it's more quantity over quality. We're getting games almost every single month, which is great, but the quality just isn't there. I'd rather wait 2 or 3 months to get 9 and 10 out of 10 games than 7s and 6s. And to help give you a better visual representation of the year, this is how I felt. Donkey Kong Bonanza is the only one that I believe goes into excellent, which is a need-to-get game, where Yoshi and the Mysterious Book and Pokemon Pokopia are really good games that are definitely worth it if you have a Switch 2. For Kirby Air Riders, Mario Kart World, and Mario Tennis Fever, they're good games, but they're not necessarily a need in my opinion. But if you have a Switch 2, I still think you should give them a look. Next up, we have Pokemon ZA, Kirby and Mario Wonder Switch 2 editions, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, and Welcome Tour. These are just you could probably skip out on them if you want. The Switch 2 editions aren't terrible, but at the same time, they're minimal content and you could definitely skip it. You don't need to waste money on just a little bit of content that they do add. Which then leaves us at our bottom here, where these are games that I feel like are not that good and you can just skip altogether if you want. Like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which pains me to say that, Mario Party Switch 2 edition, Nintendo GameCube, just because there's a lack of GameCube games. I know, you get it if you have NSO, but I wouldn't pay extra for NSO for these games that are on there right now. install, and then drag and drive. Which leaves me with my final category of I either didn't play them or they're just ports, which is kind of both, so I didn't really talk much about them. I did not play Xenoblade Chronicles X or the Animal Crossing update, but yeah, one's a Switch 2 edition, one's a free update. There's not much else there. And then both of the Zeldas, I've already played the originals. I don't really care about replaying them just to get better frame rates, maybe sometime in the distant future. But with that, that is my final tier list of Switch 2 so far in its first year. It definitely could have better games, and as you can see, most of the heavy weight is towards the middle or end of this tier list, and Donkey Kong is just sitting up there alone with Yoshi and Pokemon Pokopia. I love the hardware itself. The Switch 2 is pretty much what I and a lot of people wanted and expected, just a more powerful, stronger Switch. I do wish they did a little bit more with its interface and UI, even giving us custom themes and some different things to differentiate itself from the original Switch, but still, if the games were just a lot better, I'd be feeling a lot happier with my Switch 2 right now. I'm still glad I bought a Switch 2. I don't have remorse or anything like that, but at the same time, I do expect a little bit more from Nintendo. And I felt like I played my other consoles more than my Switch 2 in the first year of Switch 2, which isn't a great sign. So hopefully, year 2 of Switch 2 is a lot stronger. We start seeing those bigger titles, and we start getting that more quality over quantity, because that is what Nintendo needs right now. I don't need a game every month, I just need the games that do come out to be a lot better with more content and more effort put into them. But let me know down below, how has your Switch 2 experience been? Has it been super high? Has it been super low? Are you in the middle? And what are you expecting for year 2 of Switch 2? Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Nintendo. And like always, I hope you have a blessed day, and I'll see you on the next one. See you guys.